The Young and the Restless spoilers shock. A cold shudder rippled through the corridors of Genoa City's most prestigious hospital as news of the deadly poison took hold. For weeks, Martin had meticulously orchestrated every detail of his sinister plan, and now his calculations had come to fruition. Both Phyllis Summers and Sharon Newman, two formidable women who had long dominated the headlines with their indomitable spirit and complicated pasts, were now writhing in excruciating pain, victims of a poison that had been secretly implanted within them. Martin's cruel machinations had deceived them into believing that they had already solved the mystery of the toxin, a ruse, he had calculated, to lull them into a false sense of security. But in truth, the deadly substance would not fully manifest its lethal effects until a week later, and that delay meant that every moment was a descent further into suffering. Inside the sterile, humming halls of the hospital, the atmosphere was heavy with despair. Phyllis, always a symbol of strength despite the tumult of her past, now lay pale and shuddering, her body betraying her as waves of pain surged relentlessly. Sharon, no less tormented, struggled to maintain consciousness, her face etched with the agony of betrayal and the relentless sting of the poison coursing through her veins. Despite the tireless efforts of the doctors, who scrambled to keep the two women stable with powerful painkillers, the relief was fleeting and paradoxically only deepened their misery. The medications dulled the edge of the pain for a short while, yet every dose seemed to signal another surge of suffering once the fleeting respite wore off. The hospital staff whispered among themselves, incredulous and heartbroken, as they tended to the two patients. "What did they do to deserve this fate?" murmured one nurse, her eyes glistening with sympathy. Every heartbeat of the afflicted women echoed the injustice of it all. Phyllis and Sharon had, in their own ways, struggled to carve out their lives amidst the chaos of Genoa City's relentless power plays. Now, they were suffering not because of a mistake of their own, but because they had been caught in the crossfire of Martin's carefully calculated game. In a cramped, dimly lit room of her modest apartment, Tracy paced restlessly. The news of Phyllis and Sharon's suffering had reached her like a cruel gust of wind, and she was desperate to help. With trembling fingers, she dialed Martin's number over and over, her voice barely concealing the urgency of her plea. "Martin, please," she whispered into the phone, her tone a blend of desperation and anger. "I need the antidote. They're in excruciating pain, what have you done?" But the line fell silent, and after several futile attempts, Martin's chilling absence spoke volumes. In his cold, calculated manner, he had made it clear that he had no intention of offering any solace. His disregard was absolute. In his eyes, the suffering of Phyllis and Sharon was collateral damage in a game where he was the master of puppets. Meanwhile, the hospital's intensive care unit had become a stage for tragedy. The doctors, though skilled and compassionate, found themselves powerless in the face of such a carefully engineered toxin. With each passing hour, the two women's conditions deteriorated further, their bodies betraying them in ways that were as horrifying as they were inevitable. The painkillers, administered with the hope of easing the torment, only muted the immediate agony, only to be followed by even sharper, more insistent waves of pain once their effects diminished. It was as if the poison itself had a cruel rhythm, a countdown to a final, irreversible collapse. Outside the sterile confines of the hospital, the city was abuzz with rumors and fear. Friends, family, and even political figures whispered their concern over the mysterious outbreak of suffering. The underlying question that haunted everyone was, why would someone engineer such a cruel fate for two of the city's most influential women? The public, already jaded by years of scandal and intrigue, was now forced to confront a new, horrifying reality. It wasn't just a case of power struggles or betrayal anymore, it was a matter of life and death, orchestrated by a man who delighted in the chaos he wrought. Back at the hospital, Phyllis managed a weak smile through her tears, a defiant gesture against the overwhelming odds that were conspiring against her. Her spirit, though battered, was not yet broken. Sharon, too, clung to a fragment of hope, her eyes flickering with the determination of someone who refused to succumb without a fight. Their suffering, visible in every strained breath and every tremor of their hands, resonated deeply with those who witnessed it. The gravity of the situation galvanized a small circle of allies, friends and family who resolved to find the antidote, no matter the cost. Tracy, despite the crushing weight of Martin's indifference, refused to be silent. She began to mobilize every resource at her disposal, contacting trusted associates and scouring every lead that might point to a potential cure. The search for the antidote became her personal crusade, a mission to counteract the villain's cold cruelty with even greater determination. Every unanswered call from Martin only stoked the fire of her resolve, transforming her into a warrior in her own right, prepared to defy the man who had set this nightmare in motion. As the hours ticked by, the hospital's corridors seemed to echo with the silent cries of pain and the relentless march of time. The impending deadline of 1 week loomed large, a deadline that promised the full onset of the toxin's devastating effects. In the hearts of those who cared for Phyllis and Sharon, a desperate hope was kindled. Perhaps there was still time to reverse the poison's course, to save these two iconic figures from the precipice of death. Yet, amid the despair, there was also an undercurrent of determination. Tracy's efforts, combined with the relentless pursuit of any information regarding the antidote, began to show small glimmers of promise. Secret meetings were arranged, and shadowy figures with knowledge of Martin's operations started to emerge from the darkness. Every piece of evidence, every whispered clue, was a potential step closer to unraveling the mystery of the poison and, ultimately, to saving Phyllis and Sharon from an agonizing fate. In the midst of this unfolding drama, the citizens of Genoa City held their breath, collectively mourning for the suffering of those who had once commanded the city's attention. The tragedy of Phyllis and Sharon was not just a personal catastrophe, it was a stark reminder of the ruthless machinations of a man who thrived on chaos and despair. And as the crisis deepened, a poignant question resonated through the city's soul: what had these remarkable women done to deserve such torment? The answer, obscured by Martin's cold cruelty and his unyielding refusal to care, was a bitter testament to the dangerous intersection of power, deception, and the human cost of ambition. In the days that followed, as the search for the antidote intensified and the hospital fought a silent battle against time, a palpable sense of solidarity emerged among those determined to challenge Martin's rule. Tracy, in her tireless quest to reach him and force his hand, became a symbol of resistance against the darkness that threatened to engulf the city. Her pleas, echoing through unanswered phone lines and shadowed hallways, were a call to arms for everyone who believed that no one should suffer such an ignoble fate. Ultimately, as Phyllis and Sharon lay on the brink of oblivion, the saga of their suffering, and the relentless pursuit of justice, became a defining chapter in the ongoing battle against tyranny in Genoa City. Their pain, though excruciating, had ignited a spark of defiance in the hearts of many, a spark that promised to expose the truth behind Martin's monstrous design. And in that promise lay a fragile hope, that even in the darkest of hours, the indomitable human spirit could find a way to rise, to fight back, and to reclaim a future free from the shackles of cruelty and despair. This narrative captures the horror of the poisoning, the desperation of those left to deal with its consequences, and the unwavering determination of those who refuse to let such cruelty go unanswered. The tragedy of Phyllis and Sharon stands as a stark reminder of the dangerous games being played in the shadowed corners of Genoa City, and the deep, personal costs that accompany them. Martin's manipulations had reached a disturbing new low. In one of his most audacious and twisted schemes yet, he had taken Phyllis Summers and Sharon Newman away from the public eye, confining them within the cold, decaying walls of an abandoned mental health facility. Known only to a few as the Remnant Asylum, this forgotten structure became the stage for Martin's bizarre therapy, a treatment so unconventional and sinister that its true purpose remained shrouded in mystery. Martin had convinced both women that the therapy would free them from their past traumas, but it was clear from the beginning that his methods were far from healing. While Sharon and Phyllis managed to find a fragile harmony within the confines of their enforced treatment, the results for Phyllis were anything but promising. Rather than the expected breakthrough, Phyllis's mental and emotional state seemed to deteriorate with each passing day. Her behavior grew increasingly erratic, a transformation that did not go unnoticed. Longtime fans of YNR were quick to point out that the Phyllis they once knew, sharp, resilient, and ruthlessly elegant, was slipping away, replaced by a woman haunted by inner demons and unpredictable outbursts. The once formidable matriarch was now a puzzle, her true self concealed beneath layers of pain and confusion. Summer Newman, ever watchful and protective, sensed the change in Phyllis. With a mixture of worry and frustration, she began to worry that Martin's elaborate charade had irreversibly harmed someone he claimed to care for. Summer's concern was further compounded when Billy Abbott, who had shared many years of tumultuous history with Phyllis, started noticing the troubling signs. Billy's instincts, honed by years of navigating the treacherous waters of Genoa City, told him that Phyllis was no longer her usual self. Her once calculated maneuvers had been replaced by unpredictable actions and emotional vulnerability, signs that something was deeply wrong. During the week of March 24 to 28, an unexpected shift occurred. Billy, who had long maintained a complicated, layered relationship with Phyllis, decided that it was time to step in. He offered to help her, determined to support her through this dark period even as Phyllis desperately tried to hide her inner turmoil from both Summer and Daniel Romalotti Jr. Billy's proposal wasn't simply a gesture of kindness. It was an acknowledgement of the fact that Phyllis was in dire need of someone who understood her complex past and recognized the warning signs of her mental distress. In a series of clandestine meetings, held in the dimly lit back rooms of Billy's office and over whispered phone calls in the dead of night, he extended his support. Phyllis, Billy said in a tone that mixed genuine concern with his characteristic blunt candor, "You're not alone in this. I know you're trying to keep everything hidden from Summer and Daniel, but this isn't something you should shoulder by yourself." His words, though laced with the weight of their history, carried an urgency that could not be ignored. Phyllis, torn between pride and the growing realization that she might be spiraling out of control, hesitated. For years, she had managed to maintain the facade of control, even as the underlying pain churned beneath the surface. But the relentless pressure of Martin's manipulations, coupled with the haunting environment of the remnant asylum, had begun to crack her defenses. "Billy," she replied, her voice trembling ever so slightly, I'm not sure if I can handle this alone. What if the damage is too deep?" Her eyes, once sharp and unyielding, now shone with a glimmer of vulnerability that few had ever seen. Billy's expression softened, a rare moment of tenderness breaking through his typically hard-edged demeanor. "Then let me help you, Phyllis. I know you've been through hell, and maybe this isn't something I can fix entirely. But together, we might be able to at least get you out of this nightmare." His promise was as resolute as it was heartfelt, offering a lifeline that she both needed and feared accepting. Yet, even as Billy's support began to serve as a temporary balm for Phyllis's wounded spirit, a larger question loomed ominously over her future. If her mental injuries, inflicted by Martin's twisted therapy, continued to worsen, there would come a point when even Billy's unwavering assistance might not be enough. The specter of a permanent, institutionalized care loomed large, and the possibility of having to enter Fairview, or another dedicated mental health facility, was a prospect that terrified her. The thought of being locked away in a sterile, controlled environment, stripped of even the slightest semblance of freedom, was a fate Phyllis could neither accept nor endure. In the days that followed, Summer Newman's concern grew into something more urgent. Having observed Phyllis's erratic behavior and sporadic outbursts, Summer began to worry not only about Phyllis's own well-being but also about the potential repercussions on their intricate network of relationships in Genoa City. Summer's acute awareness of every shift in the dynamics of power and emotion made it clear that Phyllis's current state was a ticking time bomb that could disrupt not only her personal life but also the delicate balance within the Newman family and beyond. Meanwhile, Daniel Romalotti Jr., caught between his own ambitions and the complexities of his relationship with Phyllis, sensed that something was amiss. Unbeknownst to him, his interactions with Phyllis were being influenced by a profound internal struggle, a battle between the remnants of the woman she used to be and the fractured soul that was emerging as a result of Martin's cruel treatment. In private conversations with trusted friends and confidants, Daniel expressed his growing concern. "She's not the same," he would murmur, the worry evident in his voice. "Whatever Martin did, it's taken a toll on her in ways we can't even begin to comprehend." His words, reflective of the shared anxiety that had gripped those closest to Phyllis, added another layer of urgency to an already dire situation. As the week of March 24th to 28th progressed, Billy took every opportunity to be near Phyllis, ensuring that she had someone to rely on as she navigated the treacherous aftermath of her treatment. Every smile that flickered across her face, every tear that escaped in moments of weakness, was met with his quiet, steadfast support. But even as their bond deepened, a pressing question remained: was Billy's support enough to help Phyllis reclaim her former strength, or would the shadows of her trauma continue to erode her sense of self until it was beyond repair? In hushed whispers among those who cared, it was suggested that if Phyllis's injuries, both emotional and psychological, continued to worsen, there might be no other option but to commit her to a more specialized facility. The prospect of entering Fairview, a state-of-the-art mental health center known for its intensive care programs, was a bitter pill to swallow. For Phyllis, a woman who had built her entire identity on survival and defiance, the idea of surrendering to an institution was both a personal defeat and a public scandal. Back in the shadowed corridors of the remnant asylum, the echoes of Martin's twisted therapy still reverberated, a constant reminder that, in Genoa City, even the most carefully laid plans could have devastating and unforeseen consequences. Martin's indifference to the suffering he had orchestrated was palpable, and every time Phyllis's behavior veered further from the norm, it was a stark testament to the collateral damage of his calculated cruelty. And so, as the week drew to a close, the stage was set for a confrontation between past wounds and the promise of redemption. Billy's unwavering support, Summer's vigilant concern, and even Daniel's quiet observations formed a collective plea, a silent, desperate call for help directed at Phyllis's troubled soul. Whether or not that call would be answered with the healing she so desperately needed remained to be seen. Yet one thing was clear: in a city where every move was scrutinized and every misstep could spark a scandal, the future of Phyllis Summers hung in a delicate balance, teetering between the hope of recovery and the specter of institutional confinement. In the unpredictable theater of Genoa City, where the rules were constantly rewritten and the past could never be fully escaped, Phyllis's fate, and the support she received from those who truly cared, would be determined not only by the machinations of a ruthless puppeteer like Martin but also by the resilience of the human spirit. As each day passed, the community held its breath, waiting to see if the battered soul of Phyllis Summers could be mended by the unwavering hands of those who refused to let her be lost to the darkness forever.